Hello guys, and welcome back. In this video we are going to take a look at how we can add in a little tick functionality, which is going to be really nice, I think. And then we're getting pretty close to be feature complete with this stuff here, with the slider thing. And then we have the rotator stuff that we're going to get to afterwards. And that is going to be quite a bit more complicated, but I'm going to get to that, and we're going to get through it all, so don't worry. Let's see, the BP mover. I'm going to put stuff like that all the way down in the BP mover, because it's going to be useful also for the rotator. If you move around at certain intervals, you want to have a little tick event fire off a configurable frequency. So we're going to create a variable here of type float, which we're going to call tick frequency, tick interval. This is delta between value where mover tick will fire. I don't know. Could probably come up with a better name, but it's going to be a setting, and it's going to be public. And for now, let's just keep it at 0. And I'm making a decision now. I could add in, like we have has limit, and we can add in has tick interval, or should tick or something. But I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to say if the tick interval is equal to 0, then it means that it's not going to tick. Actually, one other thing we want to make sure of is, if you remember this stuff, in the beginning here we say if it's the limit is less than 0, then we will set it to 0. If we want to clamp this stuff here, just to make sure that it doesn't go outside that. And we also want the tick interval to be clamped, basically. So I suppose we just do something similar, I guess. Could maybe make this a little bit more restrictive or something, but it's not. So it needs to be equal. The tick interval needs to be limited to be within 0 and the limit. If we have a limit, because if we don't have a limit, then we don't really care what the tick interval is, except it needs to be greater than 0 always. Fuck. Okay. Yeah, we actually need to make that check. Okay. I'm gonna do it like this. Oops. And you know what? I'm gonna make a sequence for this here. And then I'm gonna disconnect you and connect this one up, and see if we can we collapse this stuff here. Collapse nodes, yes. Great. This is gonna make it so much better to look at. remove, and remove. And then we're gonna give this a name, spawn ghost meshes design ghost meshes. Sounds good. Okay, so this part here with a tick interval we should put in afterwards, and we should just make sure that it's greater than, well, if we have a limit on, it needs to be within this. Okay, but we always want to make sure that the tick interval is greater than 0. So it always needs to be like this. So that means if it's less than 0, then we're gonna set it to 0, which effectively will mean that it's gonna turn it off actually. It's gonna be okay. Don't worry. It is gonna be okay. So the way we're gonna trigger this is to do a little bit of math somewhere. So inside our event tick, we want to make a check here to begin with. Do I have something here? This is the minimum and maximum. That stuff always needs to run, I'm afraid. Okay, can't optimize that way. We can ask if the tick interval is greater than, or different, well, it needs to be greater than 0. So if it is, then we want to do this stuff here. Otherwise, don't do anything of this stuff here. So it's going to be pretty okay. And I'm thinking this is a check, has limits. So if we don't have any limits, we won't check the minimum and maximum events. And actually, we do always want to do this tick stuff here, mover tick stuff. Or we actually always want to check if we should do it, regardless of whether or not we have a limit or not. So we need to connect it up like this. Right. So the way we're going to do this is to make a check if this tick interval, the limit, the value, minus some value which we don't have access to right now, so we're going to have to make that one. We're going to have to make a variable called last mover tick value. So I'm going to drag that in, say if the difference between these two, no matter if it's positive or negative, so we can do the absolute of this. If this is greater than, it has to be greater than, not greater than or equal, otherwise it's gonna potentially fire several times. Then we're gonna do a branch here and say, then we wanna update that value and set it to fire that event. So we're gonna set last mover tick value to be equal to our current value, and then fire off the event that we don't have right now. So we're gonna have to expand our little interface, which I have here. mover tick, and go back to our mover and implement that function on mover tick trick like this. And we're just going to borrow some of this stuff here. It's going to be easier that way. Mover tick message. So we're sending a message. Like that. And like that. So now we have that event that we can call. Let's see. So we just call on tick. So you can see the BP mover object doesn't really know what to do with this. It just does a check, and if that check is true, then it's gonna fire off this event here. So it doesn't know anything about what to do. That is really nice. We're gonna put this in the internal group. And also one more thing we need to do, we need to initialize last mover tick value, because otherwise it's going to be 0, and if the value is a different value to begin with, then things are going to go click maybe at the wrong time, you know. So begin play. We should just plug it in here. I should clean this up ASAP. But for now, oh my god, oh fuck, I was gonna collapse this stuff here. I can't really look at this stuff, it's hurting my eyes. This way, that. And then we're gonna select that stuff and collapse to remove design ghost meshes, destroy. This sounds terrible. Destroy, like that. And then we were gonna set the last mover tick value, this one. Set that to be equal to the value. That way we have that set. And all we need to do now is, let's just assume that we had all this stuff done and we had our awesome physical tracker bar that we just wanted to add in a kind of a feedback or something. So all we needed to do is say, okay, what do we want to do with this? We want a add mover tick audio. Want some kind of feedback audio on this, and that would be so that I have a click sound. Deselect, also activate, and now we can type in mover tick, which is going to be on this one. Nope, sorry. Mover tick is going to be event mover tick, this one, and we need to be positive that it's the movable actor, movable actor, and then drag this out and hit play and connect that up, and that is actually all we need to do. So hopefully everything works now. Let's give it a test. Hello? Oh, I didn't set any tick value, did I? File. And I also want to give this a different color. Now we are doing stuff here. So I remember I have something like a generic generic handle, like a black handle. This very pretty. Very nice, huh? Oops. Aha. For some reason it doesn't. Oh, it's not all the way. Yeah, so we actually need to add a snap. That's going to be very useful for stuff like that. We're not going to do that in this video, I think. Or maybe we can. Well, we can begin building up this stuff here. Yeah, let's just spend a little time to build this. We can start with it. So what we need to have here is a setting again. If we should snap, we don't necessarily want to snap. So again, it's gonna be very generic, this. So snap to ends. I could make two settings, snap to beginning, snap to end, to make it super generic. It's not gonna make it super more complex, but I think I'm just gonna go with one setting just to make it a little bit more simple. It's gonna be very simple to explain this. Okay, and we're gonna put this in the settings section and make it public. And how close do we want to be before we snap? That is also going to be a setting. Float. Snap to end distance. Should I call this snap to ends distance? Is that more correct? Or just... I just think about one more thing we actually need, and that is the because right now it's sliding, it's moving fluidly, but it's actually not snapping the actual slider at all. It's just playing the sound. So that is something we actually also want to add into this. So while we're doing settings in here, and I can say that all these settings are, I consider settings that we can use in almost any setup that we make with one of these movable things. So the idea is, if I don't see the absolute need to put it all the way down here, then I wouldn't put it here. But if I can see myself add the same functionality to a rotator or something else, then I definitely want to put it at a higher level. So that is the reasoning behind putting it here. So snap to end distance is going to be a public something, and I'm just thinking what the restrictions for this one should be, because if we snap to each interval, which we actually need a Boolean, no, not like that, no, which we actually need a Boolean to control. Snap to tick intervals. If true, the mover will snap to tick interval. Did I comment the other ones? Not this one. Snap to end distance is going to be distance from which we should snap to end from. That is a shitty description, I know. I hope I'm not polluting the settings too much like this. Well, the snap to end, snap to something, blah blah blah, it seems to be, if we look at it out here, we have what? Compile. Save. Actually, let's just, okay. We have snap to end distance, and snap to ticks intervals. Okay, so the tick interval should actually be up here. We can move that up by, where is it? I think we can do something like this. Yeah, so probably you also want to move has limit up a little bit. So it's check mark and a setting, check mark and setting, check mark and a setting, check mark and a setting. So these relate, tick snap. I'm just thinking if I can come up with a better name for this, so it's more clear that they are related. But I think it's going to be okay. Let's just keep this for now. Okay, so what we did just right now was to add in a whole bunch of new things that we need to be able to implement. And I am thinking if it makes sense to snap to ends if you have snap to tick intervals. If one of the values is bigger than the other one, which one will overrule which? I will have to think about that off video and just call it a episode. Call it a day. No, actually I'm not, but I'm gonna pause the video here and continue in the next once I had a chance to think about how I'm going to do this. Okay, thank you for watching and bye bye.